I am reading from Genesis 49:29-33 NIV. The death of Jacob. Then he gave them these instructions. I am about to be gathered to my people. Bury me with my fathers in the cave in the field of Ephron the Hittite, the cave in the field of Machpelah, Mamre in Canaan, which Abraham bought along with the field as a burial place from Ephron the Hittite. There Abraham and his wife Sarah were buried. There Isaac and his wife Rebekah were buried. And there I buried Leah. The field and the cave in it were bought from the Hittites. When Jacob had finished giving instructions to his sons, he drew his feet up into the bed, breathed his last, and was gathered to his people.
Well, as we're getting to the topic of Jacob's death, we're obviously getting to the end of our series. We've been here now for almost 3 months, looking at the life of Joseph. And today is a very important topic as we deal with when the last is the best, and approaching our sunset years. And is God still real? Can He still work in my life at that time? Here are some of my favorite messages I've read about people's answering machines. Hi. Now you say something. There's another one. Hello. I'm David's answering machine. What are you? Or another one. Greetings. You have reached the Sixth Sense Detective Agency. We know who you are and what you want, so at the sound of the tone, please hang up. There's another one. I can't come to the phone now because I have amnesia and I feel stupid talking to people I don't remember. I'd appreciate if you could help me out by leaving my name, telling me something about myself. Thanks. And one more. Hi. I'm probably home. I'm just avoiding someone I don't like. Leave a message, and if I don't call you back, it's you. Well, we've been dealing with Joseph and the dysfunctionality that he's been living with his family and not getting along. And just the trials that Joseph had to go through as a result of that. What it took to finally bring them back together again, both with his dad and also with his brothers, which is very important in God's economy. Now, down through the centuries, one of the marks of Christians that has stood out is the way they die. John Wesley once said to his opponents, quote, "Our people die well." I read of a missionary dying who sat up and said, quote, "Put on my shoes. I don't want to go to heaven lying flat. I want to go working for my Lord." Well, that's maybe not good medical advice, but you can see it's a good attitude. On the other hand, we know of someone like Ernest Hemingway, a great macho literary figure with wealth, prestige, and fame. But at the end of his life, he wrote, quote, "My life is as lonely as a radio tube when the current is turned off." And we have the detailed report of how he committed suicide. Will I finish well? A lot of people have a good start in life, but they don't end well. Some people don't have a good start in life, but they can end well. That's the encouragement today, is we can end well. Now, when we look at Jacob's life, and now we thought about his life when he first came to Egypt, because he's 130 years old. He's lived a lot of life, had a lot of experiences, and yet didn't feel that good about his life in many ways. In Genesis chapter 47, verse 28 and 29, Jacob lived in Egypt 17 years, and the years of his life were 147. And so when the time drew near for Israel to die, he called for his son Joseph and said to him, "If I have found favor in your eyes, put your hand under my thigh and promise that you will show me kindness and faithfulness. Do not bury me in Egypt, but when I rest with my fathers, carry me out of Egypt and bury me where they are buried." There is a last-minute request, something that is part of dying well. When I have died, here's what I want you to do. And I want you to he said to Joseph, I want you to put your hand underneath me, which is their way of saying, I am supporting your yearnings. And so as Joseph put his hand under his father as he was dying, and his father gave that request, Joseph, by being there, placing his hands under his dad as he made this request, was saying, I will uphold, I will support what you're requesting, what you're asking for. I will help you to die well. I know what your yearnings are. I know what your life's longings are. And I am here to help you to fulfill those longings. What a lasting memory for him to think, wow, I remember when, as my dad was done, he made a special request and asked me to stand by and promise to fulfill those yearnings. One of the memories I have of my dad is his evening worship. Usually at around 9:30 in the evening, after listening to about 10 million gospel programs on CFB Melton. And as a kid, you're sitting there just bearing through, he's listening to one program after another. And then there was about time just before going to bed, and then he would pull out his accordion, and then he himself would play a bit and worship and sing. Most nights, that's how he would end his day. He would end his day in worship. And there was one song he would sing over and over and over again. And embedded within my mind as a little kid, and of course I would hide in my room because I know what would happen. He would pull out his accordion, start to sing, and after a while it'd be, Art, where are you? And I'd have to come out of my room and I would have to join him. I'd have to sing with him. And once I got there, I kind of enjoyed it. But till then, I'm going, oh, do I have to do this again with Dad? And yet, what a lasting memory I have. There's one song he sang hundreds of times over and over and over again. So as he's playing his accordion, I can still picture his head sort of going back and singing, oh, to be like thee, oh, to be like thee, blessed Redeemer, pure as thou art. Come in thy sweetness, come in thy fullness, stamp thine own image deep on my heart. That's the lasting memory I have of my father, worshiping. That's how he ended his day. That's how he started his night. Longing to be more like Jesus and worshiping him. So I guess my question is, what lasting memory will you leave for your children? What will they remember you by? How intentional am I in the way I live to leave an impact on my children and on my grandchildren? James Dobson put this inscription on his father's grave, just 2 words. He prayed. What a great legacy. He prayed. Joseph could have had this inscription on his father's tomb. He blessed and he worshipped. Because at the end, that blessing he gave was the pinnacle of his life when he blessed his sons and then died. Well, then he worshipped and died. Now, when we look at the life of Jacob, he is a classical description of what we would call a driven man. Jacob was always seeking, searching, grasping for more. His name, Jacob, meant manipulator or a grasper. And when you look at the view of his life, how he saw his life, we see this in chapter 47, verse 7 to 9. When he first comes to Egypt, here's his view of his life, the first 130 years. Then Joseph brought his father Jacob in, presented him before Pharaoh. And after Jacob blessed Pharaoh, Pharaoh asked him, "How old are you?" Jacob said to Pharaoh, "The years of my pilgrimage are 130, but my years have been few and difficult, and they don't equal the years of the pilgrimage of my fathers. I basically live a wasted life. Hard, don't really have anything meaningful to show for. Doesn't feel that good about his life at 130. See, Jacob had always tried to prove something about himself. And I have a sneaking suspicion it started early in his life, because Jacob was not Dad's boy. Esau was his brother. I get a sense that Jacob spent his lifetime trying to prove himself who he was, because he never really had the approval of his father. And throughout the rest of his life, he's always grasping and manipulating and wanting more and more and more. Here's a classic description of a driven man. Number one, he is gratified only by accomplishment and achievement. Driven people measure their life by their outer life. What matters is what they do. They're achievement-oriented, but not very character-oriented. In other words, look at my toys. Just don't look at my heart. They're more concerned about what can be seen instead of what's going on on the inside. Because that's where they seek their worth and their value from others, what they see on the outside. A former director of China Inland Mission had this sign visible on his desk for all missionaries to see, quote, "Beware of the barrenness of a busy life." The barrenness of a busy life. Jacob struggled with the truth that the real me is actually the inner me. He was a driven man who measured his life by his accomplishments and achievements. Secondly, a driven man is result-focused. He's not so concerned about the means, but the ends. He's not concerned about the morality of his actions, but the success of his actions. He was a pragmatist to the core. Over and over in life, Jacob would often go after the right things in the wrong way. He's more concerned about the results than building character. And it's easy to fall into that trap when you live in a world that measures our worth and our value by what we can see of them and the results, the toys, the stuff that they have. When you read Genesis 30, where Jacob comes to his father-in-law Laban and says, "You know what? I don't have a lot to show for my own. I really want to launch out on my own. Could you help me make something of myself? I really want my own herds. I want my own flocks. I want to go on my own. I want to establish my own name." Laban says, "Okay, that's fair. You can use some of my flocks to start building your herd, and we'll sort of divvy things up, go 50-50. So what does Jacob do? Has a very interesting way of how he developed his breeding stock. And the Bible says in Genesis chapter 30, verse 42, "And all the weak ones went to Laban, and all the strong ones went to Jacob." And it says, "And his wealth increased immeasurably." There's Jacob doing it the wrong way because he's result-focused. Another characteristic of a driven person is he uses people rather than serving people. If you look at Jacob's relationship with his brother Esau, his relationship with his father Isaac, and his relationship with his father-in-law Laban, he had no lasting relationship with anyone because he was a user, not a servant. So where do you think his sons learned to manipulate and get rid of their brother Joseph? I think that seed was planted a long time ago in Jacob's whole life. And like father, like son. But something appears to have happened once he gets to Egypt. And he has those 17 years of life in Egypt. He has a whole new experience of the provision and the presence of God. And something stirs in his heart. Something starts to happen. And suddenly, Jacob ends well. Read in chapter 48, verse 15 and 16. Then he blessed Joseph and said, "May the God before whom my fathers, Abraham and Isaac, walked, the God who's been my shepherd all my life to this day." We're going, are you the same person we just read about in the previous chapters? All of a sudden in Egypt. He goes, yeah, you know what? I've been blessed with this God who's been my shepherd, and suddenly he's blessing. Something has turned around in his heart. And suddenly, rather than being just a driven man, he is a directed man who suddenly is living like a covenant person of God, living according to God's provision and God's direction in life. So, question: are you a driven person? Or are you a directed person? Are you allowing God to give daily, intimate direction to your heart, your mind, your thoughts, your emotions, and your will? And it appears that in his last days, Jacob is far more excited about the promised land when he's not in the promised land. Now that he's in Egypt, all of a sudden he has this fond memories of going back, with this desire to go back again. And he's excited about the promised land. He's excited about Canaan. And he's focused on the promises of God and yearns that everyone will go back there again. So here's my point to all of us in the first part. It's never too late to start to know the grace of God in your life. It's not too late. It's not too late to fully open your heart and say, God, I want a new and a fresh stirring of your spirit in my heart. I want a fresh reality of your daily promises for a full life. I want to experience the reality of what it means to live a submitted life. Or say, Lord, use me wherever you can today. At the age of 130, he gets a new start. And he ends well. Oswald Sanders was tending to his wife, who was dying of cancer and suffering deeply with the disease. Days before she died, as he was fussing all over her needs, trying to make her as comfortable as possible, she looked at him and said, quote, Oswald, don't make things too easy for me, dear. I must keep growing. Just imagine, here she is she's ready to meet the Lord. These are her last days, her last moments. And her sentiments are, I want to keep growing in my walk with God. Wow. That's where Jacob ended up being. Well, that leads me to the second major point, where Jacob blesses his sons. Blessing is a key element of what God does to life. He loves to bless. If you go back to Genesis chapter 1, after he created Adam and Eve, it says in verse 28 of Genesis 1, God blessed them and said. So right from the start, the moment we were created, he blessed us and told us how to live a fruitful life, according to Genesis 1, verse 28 to 30. Then we get to Genesis chapter 12, where God calls Abraham out and says, I want to make a special nation, a special people out of you. We see in Genesis chapter 12. These are God's words. The Lord had said to Abraham, leave your country, your people, your father's household, and go to the land I will show you. And I will make you to a great nation, and I will bless you. I will make your name great, and you will be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you. Whoever curses you, I will curse. And all peoples on earth will be blessed through you. Why does God want to bless me? So I can bless others to the glory of God. God is a God of blessing. And here, God is going to use Jacob to pour a special blessing on his sons just before he dies. First of all, we see some ordinary blessings. Now, according to chapter 49, verse 28, after he's blessed all his sons, it says in verse 28, all these are the 12 tribes of Israel. This is what their father said to them when he blessed them, giving each the blessing appropriate to him. It was different for each son. Each son came to the bedside, and Dad had a special word for each son individually that was appropriate to each one. Look at verse 2. He starts with his oldest. Reuben, you're my firstborn. Chapter 49. Verse 3. Reuben, you're my firstborn. My might, the first sign of my strength, excelling in honor, excelling in power. You're going to say, Reuben, oh yeah, that's me. I'm the oldest. That describes me. Big brother, strong, virile. Then comes the rest of the words. Turbulent as the waters, you will no longer excel. For you went up into your father's bed, into my couch, and defiled it. It appears that his son never repented of having taken one of Jacob's maid wives to bed. Never dealt with. Never dealt with. The only blessing Jacob could give Reuben was the blessing of truth. Here is the truth. Here's what you did. As a result, here's what will happen to you. Not exactly how you like to say your last words to a son. Then you have the next two sons come up. Now, you've got Simeon and Levi, our brothers. It says, their swords are weapons of violence. Let me not enter their council. Let me not join their assembly, for they have killed men in their anger. Simeon and Levi were guilty of genocide of the Shechemites earlier on in life. Again, something they've never dealt with. He said, there's blood in your hands. And I cannot give you a further blessing. I can only give you the blessing of truth. What will happen because of what you have done, your heart isn't right. What we know of those two tribes is this. Number one, the tribe of Simeon disappeared later on. It just sort of got assimilated amongst the other tribes. After a while, that tribe, as a distinct tribe, did not exist. Levi didn't get any land. Now, later on, God will be gracious with that tribe and give them some other responsibilities that were actually very God-honoring. Then let's skip to verse 13. Zebulun will be by the seashore, become a haven for ships. His border will extend towards Sidon. In other words, he's saying, Zebulun, you will prosper with international trade. I see ahead. I see what's going to happen. God will prosper you. Some positive words to give. Verse 14 and 15, he talks to Issachar. He says, Issachar, you're going to have a beautiful, fruitful land. The only problem is, you're so busy comfortable, you don't want to give it proper leadership. You'd rather end up being a slave to someone else, not have the headaches of leadership in your life. And that's what we read about in verse 14 and 15. And then in verse 16, he looks at Dan, and he says, Dan will provide justice for his people as one of the tribes of Israel. Dan will be a serpent by the roadside, a viper along the path that bites the horse's heels so that its rider tumbles backwards. Dan, you will be a strong tribe. And which biblical figure comes from the tribe of Dan? Samson. He is that serpent that will destroy the Philistines. Then he goes on to his other three sons, to Gad and Asher and Naphtali. He describes the strength and prosperity they're going to get. Then he finally gets to Benjamin as well. He says, Benjamin, you're going to be fierce in battle. In fact, in the future, when Israel goes out to war, they're going to cry, after you, O Benjamin. They're going to be one of those tribes up front that are going to go out there and dash the enemies who will follow you in battle. Well, those are some of the ordinary blessings he gives. But there are two sons he gives some very distinct blessings. They are absolutely life-changing. That will actually impact history. He takes an extended period of time to talk to Judah. And Judah begins in verse 8. Judah, your brothers will praise you. Your hand will be in the neck of your enemies. Your father's sons will bow down to them. You are a lion's cub, O Judah. You return from the prey, my son, like a lion who crouches, lies down, like a lioness who dares to go, who dares to rouse him? And then there's a very interesting sentence here. The scepter will not depart from Judah, nor the ruler's staff from between his feet, until he comes to whom it belongs, and the obedience of the nations is his. Judah, you have no idea how powerful you will be. But let me give you a hint. From your tribe will come who's like a lion. And there's a very interesting phrase in verse 10. Until he comes to whom it belongs. And all Jewish commentators say this is messianic. The Messiah, the one to whom it belongs to, he will come. They say that's the Messiah that will come to the tribe of Judah. And so Christians and Jews alike agree. This is messianic. He is now prophesying in the future the Messiah will come from your tribe. That's interesting considering what is Judah known for. He had sex with his daughter-in-law Tamar. I mean, when you see some of the stuff these boys did, and you go, and God uses them as the patriarchs of religious history. I don't have time to go through, but it appears that with time, there are some things that Judah does that shows his life is turning around. And by this time, the Father can give this tremendous blessing on Judah. What a blessing it is. Then he says in verse 11, he will tether his donkey to a vine, his colt to the choicest branch. He will wash his garments in wine, his robes in the blood of grapes. In other words, you will be so prosperous that if you tie your donkey to the vine, they start living, eating away at all your grapes, doesn't matter. There's so much grapes out there, your donkeys can eat all they want. They'll be left the grapes left over. That's how fruitful we will be. Now, when Jesus came on the scene, performed his first miracle, on chapter 2, what's Jesus' first miracle? Turning water into wine. After he did that, notice in John chapter 2, verse 11, this, the first of his miraculous signs, Jesus performed at Cana in Galilee. He thus revealed his glory, and his disciples put their faith in him. A lot of commentators look at that verse and say, we think that when the disciples saw what Jesus was doing with the wine, it reminded them of the future given to Judah. You will be so fruitful with your wine, with your grapes, indicating he, the Messiah that is to come, is the abundant one. He is the one who will pour blessing upon blessing in your life. Well, then he comes to Joseph. And now, of course, there's a blessing for Joseph. He also blessed Judah. And again, something very distinct here. Don't have time to look at this, but Joseph had two sons, Ephraim, Manasseh, and Jacob officially adopts them as his children. Puts them on his knee and adopts them. So they become his sons. They're his grandchildren, biologically, but he makes them his sons and makes them a part of the 12 tribes of Jacob. One of those sons, Ephraim, will become a very powerful tribe of the north. Probably the most powerful tribe in Israel. And in verse 22, we read, Joseph is a fruitful vine, a fruitful vine near a spring whose branches climb over a wall. And then it talks about how all the strength that there will be there. Then I'm going to quickly go down to verse 24. His bow remained steady, his strong arm stayed limber, because, he says, here's why your offspring will do so well. Because of the hand of the mighty one of Jacob, because of the shepherd, the rock of Israel, because of your father's God who helps you, because of the Almighty who blesses you. Jacob is coming to that point where he realizes and enforces this thought. You will be blessed because you are surrendered to a God who blesses. He's the mighty one. The core, the seed word for the word mighty means to soar. You put your trust in this God and you will soar above life. He will be your shepherd, the one who cares. And because of this, David could say, the Lord is my shepherd because I have a God who cares for me. And because he is the rock of Israel, nothing will sway him. Because of your father's God, look at the testimonial of the fathers, how good God is. And because of the Almighty, he says, because of the Almighty who blesses you. Something interesting about that word Almighty. The Hebrew word Shad, which means, the core word for El Shaddai means many-breasted. You got a Mr. Charles Atlas, and he shows off his chest of muscles. God is the one who's full of strength and virility, many-chested. He is the powerful one, the one who fulfills all his purposes, and he declares it, and it is done. That is the El Shaddai, the all-powerful one who fulfills all his purposes. That's why you will be blessed, because of the God that you have. Leads me to the question. What understanding of God are your children learning from you? Jacob was saying, son, you put your trust in this God, and you just see the blessings come your way. Is that something that we are conferring on our children and our grandchildren? The greatness of God. Very quickly, the last thing we want to look at quickly is Jacob's deathbed experiences. First of all, his expectation, of course, in verse 29 of chapter 49, verse 29. Then he gave them these instructions: I'm about to be gathered to my people. There is a strong sense of assurance that when I die, I will be with my people. I will be alive after death. There are people from the past, they are alive. I'm being gathered to my people. This isn't the end. I am going for something more. already began to realize no man who knows God personally can live a temporal life. If you know the eternal God, you will have an eternal relationship. There is more after. Just recently, I had a young mom text us and say, this is the anniversary of when my mom died a couple of years ago. And she said, Pastor, she said, I am relying, or I am staying steady because of a short little poem we read one time in a sermon. And that just so blessed me, has given me stability when I think about my mom, because I miss her so much. And you never know what you're going to preach that certain people will hang on to. And of all the sermons that I preached, this is the one thing that she has hung on to. And this has given her strength. These 4 lines, quote, and this is written by a man after his wife died, quote, death can hide, but not divide. She is on Christ's other side. She with Christ, Christ with me, united still in Christ are we. I keep reading that over and over and over again. We're still united in Christ together. That's our hope, that when we die, we will be united with our loved ones in Christ. We are already united. Of course, we'll see them in person again soon. Jacob expected to see his family. And then also chapter 48, verse 21. He had said previously. Then Israel said to Joseph, I am about to die, but God will be with you. When they did the inscription for the Wesleys, for John Charles Wesley in Westminster Abbey, they wrote this inscription. God buries his workmen, but he carries on his work. And it's always encouragement to have. So there's his expectation. He will go on to be with his fathers, his previous family. There's also his exhortation. Bury me with my fathers in the Negev, in the field of Hebron, the Hittite, and he talks about being buried back in Canaan again. Some very strong instructions, implying 2 things. This is not our promised land. Our promised land is over there, so I want you to bury me there. But by doing that, there's another nuance. That is this. He's saying one day there will be a huge exodus. We're all going to leave Egypt. We're going to go back where all the bones of your ancestors are buried, because that's home for you. That's the drawing card. Remember, bury me there, because that's the real home. This is temporal. That's our eternal home over there in Canaan. So that's his exhortation. And of course we have his expiration. And verse 33, when Jacob had finished giving instructions to his sons, he drew his feet up into his bed, breathed his last, and was gathered to his people. I had an elder from a previous church who often pointed to that and said, that's how I hope I die. I give my love to my wife, I give my love to my children, pull the blanket over, and I'm out of here. And yeah, that'd be a great way to go, wouldn't it? Wow! Give your blessing, give your love, and go to sleep. Go to be with the Lord. Well, quickly, I just want to speak for a few moments. Pastorally. I want to share some thoughts with you based on my experience of 37 years as a pastor. When it comes to the subject we're talking about, that come to the end of your life. So let me just do some frank talk here. Number 1, funeral time needs to be an honest expression of grief. We are a culture that that feels the need to suppress grief. We don't want to show our grief. We always want to keep it all together, and we fall apart a little bit, and we apologize. I'm sorry, I just lost it for a moment. We're so careful to kind of contain our grief. That's not the way it was meant to be. Not the way it's meant to be. Genesis chapter 50, verse 1. And Joseph threw himself upon his father and wept over him. The grief just came as he threw himself over the dead body of his father. And the funeral time is a time of grief. Of course, they had days of mourning. He finally got to Canaan, and they had more days of mourning. There's a lot of time for grief. And there's something healthy about leaning into your grief and just enter into it. Go through your grief. It's the only way you will eventually get rid of that grief in a healthy way. I say this because of an experience where I can say this now because I know I'm on the air. But these relatives have passed away, so I can say this. I have an uncle who, his first two wives died, so he's married for the third time for a few years, and then he passed away. His third wife gave very, for lack of a better term, strict instructions to the pastor. I don't want you to say a thing about his death. At the funeral, all I want is just some singing, and I want a gospel message. That's all I want. I don't want anything. I don't want nothing mentioned about his death, anything. I just want the gospel message preached, and that's it. Now, this may sound horrible from an evangelical, but what a horrible funeral. The children, the biological children, were not allowed to grieve at the funeral. Nobody's supposed to think about his death. We're just here now to preach the gospel. And the venue for grief was greatly restricted and not healthy. And I remember when my uncle first died and I phoned my aunt, and I expressed my sympathies, I want to talk about it. Nobody could. No sister-in-law, no sister, no brother. They all came, they're grieving. You know, they came from a family of 12. Nope, can't talk about it. There's no grief allowed for them to talk about it. That's not healthy. Because grief is the price of love. Lean into your grief. Express it. It's the healthiest way to honor your loved one, but also then to get the healing from God as you release the grief that is there. Secondly, grief should be mingled with the joy and celebration of an eternal hope and peace. After what I just said, a funeral still is a wonderful time to preach the gospel. But you are there to honor the person and give people a venue to grieve the loss of a loved one. But in that, we grieve as people of hope. And you intermingle the hope of eternal life in your grief at a funeral. I've had a few people come to the Lord as a result of the sermon at a funeral, where I have also included the gospel in the funeral message. It's an important time. For some people, they don't go to church anymore. They only show up for a funeral. It's the only venue you have to preach the gospel. And unfortunately, there are too many pastors not doing that. And it is an important opportunity to preach. We have an eternal hope. Here's how to receive that hope. I read Paul Henderson's book, The Goal of My Life. Of course, Paul Henderson is known as scoring the winning goal in about September of 1972. He played for Team Canada and scored that winning goal against the Russians. And all of a sudden, we were so much better than the Russians after Paul Henderson scored. He wrote a book called The Goal of My Life. That book is not about the goal he scored. It's about the way. Paul Henderson is a committed believer in Christ. He's going around giving talks about his best goal in life. They all think he's going to talk about hockey. See, my goal is to honor Jesus Christ. And some time ago, I heard him. He was interviewed on AM 770 Calgary by the Roy Green Show. And he had a whole time of interview where Roy Green interviewed him. And the interviewer kept coming back to hockey, and Paul Henderson kept coming back to his faith. And he has cancer. He doesn't know how long he's going to live. And so I remember the radio host asking, so how are you coping with this cancer? You know you're going to die. And Paul Henderson talked about the freedom and the hope he has in Christ. He says, I have no fear. I'm just looking forward to being with Jesus. All these sports fans that are listening to the Roy Green show, they're going to hear Paul Henderson talk about his goal in life. Hear about the goal of meeting Jesus. There are tens of thousands of people listening to Paul Henderson. And guess what? They're hearing the gospel. Good on you, Paul. Thank you for being so faithful. That is a goal of a Christian funeral, is to share our hope of the eternal. Thirdly, now I'm going to meddle a little bit. Memorial funds. There's usually such a thing as, well, in lieu of flowers, well, you can give money to this organization, this organization. I get it. As a pastor, I want to encourage you when that happens. In lieu of flowers, pick a Christian organization. If we seek the kingdom of God first, as Jesus commanded, then my first thought of honoring God when I honor a loved one is honor the Christian work. You can give to the Gideons. You can give to Christian Baptist Ministries. You can give to Samaritan's Prayer. You can do anything. You can give to a Christian organization. Now, you can offer another secular thing to go to, like, well, Canadian Cancer Society, which is a very popular one. And for those who aren't churched and would never contribute towards a Christian ministry, you can give the outing and say, well, in lieu of flowers, you give to this Christian ministry, which we really encourage you, but you have the option, for example, give to the Canadian Cancer Society. I know I'm on the air, but I'm going to say it anyway. If you research the Canadian Cancer Society, according to a researcher from McMaster University and CBC Marketplace, less than 22% of all the money raised for Canadian Cancer Society goes to research. It goes for administrative costs and advertising. It has become such an industry that has lost its moorings. Most of the money you give doesn't go for what it's intended. That's why I say, if you want to be a good steward, give to the cause of Christ. Make sure that if it's a Christian funeral, you have memorial funds for a Christian member. I feel strongly about that. Thank you for letting me bet. Fifth, guard your heart when you have the power to put guilt on someone else. I've seen too many funeral times and grief times where suddenly it's time to even the score among relatives. That's not the time to do it. That's not the time to do it. It's a time simply to pull together. Second last thought. What is this? To grow old, free of bitterness, is the best gift you can leave your family. To grow old, free of bitterness, is the best gift you can leave your family. There are too many Christians who wait till their deathbed to quickly make something right with someone. Why did you wait so long? Why didn't you do it sooner and live a life of blessing rather than a life of bitterness till the final end? Think, oh, I better make things right before I die. I can share a couple of incidents of relatives who did that. I think you just wasted 15, 20 years of your life living with bitterness. But, oh yeah, they made things right just before he died. That's a shame. Should have done it 20 years ago. Make sure that you are living a life free of bitterness as you enter into your latter years. And then, lastly, are you speaking words of blessing to your children? Are you speaking words of blessing to your children? Have you intentionally taken some time to, from your heart, share something very important about what you feel God would like to do in their lives and bless them with that potential? Jacob ends his life blessing his sons and dies. I had a previous chairman of the board from the previous church who said, yeah, he said, I did that. I flew them all in, called in all my kids. They didn't know why I was calling them in. He said, call them all in. He's not a very wealthy farmer. He probably thought, oh, we're all going to get our inheritance. I don't know. Called them all in. They ended up a place somewhere. There's all his kids. He had prayed about it. And then each one individually, he pronounced a blessing and a prayer over each one of his kids. He says, if I die tomorrow, he says, I may live another 20 years. He says, if I die tomorrow, all I'm saying now, what I wish I would have said, just in case I haven't, and I died before. So he used that time to intentionally speak some specific words of encouragement, exhortation, blessing, and prayer over each one of his children. He said it was a touching time as he poured out his heart and individually blessed and prayed over each one of his kids. And I like that. So, a few years back, Rachel and I are going through the States, went through South Carolina where we saw that big oak tree, the world's largest oak tree, spreads out about 170 feet across. It is hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years old. We got a picture of this massive oak, biggest oak tree in the world. We got 5 pictures of that, one for ourselves, 4 for our 4 kids. And about 3 years ago, we had all our kids join us at a campsite in the foothills. And Rachel and I were prepared. We were mentally prepared, spiritually prepared. And as we all stayed at the campsite, we told them why we were there. We had each individual family come in front of us. We prayed. We blessed them with a verbal blessing over each one, over each grandchild. We laid our hands and we prayed over each of our children individually. And then we intimately had communion with each one. And we had the next family and we did the same thing. And we poured our affirmation and our blessing on each one. I look back and that's one of those intimate moments spiritually when we as parents poured into the lives and the future of our children. Shall I suddenly go to be with the Lord tomorrow or today? I am so happy to say we've done that. They know how we feel about them. And we have called on the blessing of God upon their lives. And we believe that God answers prayer. We have sought the face of God and we continually still speak words of affirmation and blessing. But we had like a ceremony where we officially did that. And then on the back of this picture, that we gave each one a framed picture of this oak tree that they can hang up in their home as a reminder that they've been blessed spiritually by God and are to be a blessing. And the back is from Isaiah 61. They will be called oaks of righteousness, a planting of the Lord for the display of his splendor. That's what it says in the back. So I challenge you. Your kids may be younger. Don't bite. Say, Lord, what is it that I can bless my children with now? So they could watch the blessing of God. Those are some of the thoughts that I want to share with you. So that we as people of God can enter. Father, I thank you for this time together, Lord, that you've spoken to us today. And I pray, Lord, that any words that I say that are just straw, I pray you'll blow it away. Lord, I pray that that which bears witness to truth, that you will deeply embed that in our hearts so that each one of us can live well and end well. I pray in Jesus' name.